we're going to go over how to do age word problems. Now these can seem daunting at first, but I'm going to show you how to break them down and solve them so that they're not scary to do. So the first thing you need to do is read the problem. So Kevin is 3 years older than Daniel. So we have two people we're talking about, Kevin and Daniel, and one of them is 3 years older than the other. 2 years ago, so we're talking about a time in the past, so 2 years ago, Kevin was 4 times as old as Daniel. So we're talking about now and 2 years ago. And he wants to just use that information to find out how old Kevin is now. So the first thing we want to do is want to create a little table. So we're going to talk about now and 2 years ago. All right, so we're going to come up first with some expressions, something that we can use to represent Kevin and Daniel's age. Now, you don't know how to work yet with two different variables, so you're using one variable. So because Kevin is kind of the leader, and it's comparing Kevin to Daniel, so Kevin is something, we're going to call Kevin X. So we'll call him X. So here, Kevin is going to be called X. Now, we need something for Daniel. Well, we know that Daniel is 3 years younger than Kevin because Kevin is 3 years older than Daniel. So we can think if whatever Kevin's age is minus 3, we could call Daniel. So example, if Kevin was 10, then we know Daniel will be 7. So 10 minus 3 would be 7. So we don't know Kevin's age, so that's why we're using X, and Daniel is X minus 3. Okay, so now let's make expressions for 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, we still have Kevin and we still have Daniel, but their ages obviously are not going to be the same as they are now. It was 2 years ago. So if we're calling Kevin X now, 2 years ago we can call Kevin X minus 2 because it was 2 years ago. If we're calling Daniel X minus 3 now, 2 years ago, it was 2 more away. So we can think about X minus 3 is what he is now, and then minus 2 more. Well, we can combine these to make them look a little better. So this is actually X minus 5. Okay, so now we have some information to go further and to find out what we're talking about. Okay, so now it says 2 years ago, Kevin was. So we've set up the expressions for what they would be called, but now we're going a little deeper. So 2 years ago, Kevin was 4 times as old as Daniel. Okay, so if we're talking about Kevin, Kevin is X minus 2 because we're talking about this 2 years ago right here. He was X minus 2, and that means he was, or think about, that's the same thing as saying is if it's in the present. So that's the equals 4 times what? 4 times as old as Daniel. Well, Daniel is X minus 5, so 4 times that. Now, we're going to work that out. So we're going to distribute. So we end up with 4X minus 20. Nothing happened over here. And now we're going to go to solve. I like to move my variables first, so I'm going to move what makes it easier. So minus X. These are gone from this side. I have a negative 2. Have 3X minus 20. Now I'm going to move my constants over, so plus 20, plus 20. So I end up here with 18. I'm going to move over here. So we have 18 is equal to 3x because this 20 cancels out. And then I divide by my coefficient of 3. So 3 divided by 3 is just 1, so I have 1x. And then 18 divided by 3 is 6. So that means x is worth 6. So it says, how old is Kevin now? Well, right now, he's being called X, and we know that X is 6. So he's actually 6 years old. So that would make, if we need to know how Daniel was right now, 6 minus 3, he would be 3 years old. 2 years ago, Daniel would have only been 6 minus 5, 1 years old. And 2 years ago, Kevin would have been 4 years old. All right, let's go to our example 2. Christopher is 20 years younger than Tony. Okay, so we've got Christopher we're talking about, and we've got Tony. And Christopher is 20 years younger than Tony. Now, it says Tony and Christopher met 2 years ago. Well, who cares when they met? They could have met 5 minutes ago. That is not important to the story. Not important to our solving. It doesn't matter when they met, so we're slashing the trash. So 14 years ago, so now we're talking about a time ago, Tony was, so this is the same thing as think about is, this is like an equals, 3 times as old as Christopher. How old is Tony now? So because we're looking for Tony's age, he's the easiest one to make the variable. So right now, we're going to say right now, and we're going to talk about 14 years ago. Okay, so right now, how old is Tony now? Well, we don't know. So Tony, we don't know your age, so we're just going to call you X. We don't know your age. We're calling you X years old. 14 years ago, however, we knew that Tony would be whatever he is now, minus 14. So we can go ahead and say what he is 14 years ago. So he was X minus 14. Okay, so we've talked about Tony. Now let's talk about Christopher. Christopher, right now, so our first one, Christopher is 20 years younger. So he's going to be X minus 20. 14 years ago, Christopher would be 14 years younger than that. So we think about taking 14 more years away. So if we have a negative 20 and we take away another 14, we actually have a negative 34. So he is X minus 34, 14 years ago. All right, so now we have our expressions set up for now and for 14 years ago. So now let's look a little bit deeper of what they're helping us do. So here's where we go. 14 years ago, so we're looking here, Tony was. So what was Tony 14 years ago? He was X minus 14. Was is the same thing as is in the present tense, but it's just in the past tense. So equals 3 times, so 3 times as old, so the whole of Christopher, X minus 34. So that is our equation. And we're now going to go ahead and solve. So distribute first. So nothing happens over here. 3 times X is 3X. 3 times a negative 34 is negative 102. Now we're going to move our numbers and our variables. So I'm going to move my variable first. It's positive X minus X minus X. These are now gone. I'm left with negative 14 here. 2X minus 102. Now let's move our constant, plus 102, plus 102. I have a positive 102 and a negative 14, so I get 88 is equal to, these are gone, so I just have 2x. Now divide by my coefficient of 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so I'm left with just the x. 88 divided by 2 is 44. So now my x is worth 44. And what was our x? It was representing Tony, of how old he is now. And that's what the question is asking. How old is Tony now? So he is 44 years old. That would be. All right, example 3. Tiffany is 34 years old and Vanessa is 6 years old. All right, so they tell us how old they are. It says, how many years will it take until Tiffany is only 3 times as old as Vanessa? So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the number of years. So what we're looking for is our unknown. So we're going to go ahead and say X is going to represent the number of years that it will take, okay, to reach that. So that's our unknown. So now let's talk about what else we know. We know that Tiffany is 34 years old. And we know that Vanessa is 6 years old. All right, so that's all the information we know right now. So now we've got to look a little bit deeper into how to set up our equation. So it says, how many years will it take until Tiffany is only 3 times as old as Vanessa? All right, so we're comparing Tiffany on one side of our equation to Vanessa. All right, so right now, we know that we want to know the number of years. So if Tiffany is 34 now, we want to know how many years will it take. So plus how many years? We don't know. We're going to find that out. until Tiffany, okay, so Tiffany's over here, is, so we got Tiffany is what? 3 times as old as Vanessa. Well, 3 times, well, Vanessa is 6, but as the years go, whatever years we find, they have to factor in too. So we have to say 6 plus x for Vanessa. Now that's our equation. Now we're going to solve it. 3 times 6 gives us 18. 3 times x gives us 3x. Now we have 34 plus x equals 18 plus 3x. Let's go ahead and solve for our variable. So we have 34 equals 18 plus 2x. Move our 18 over. We have 16 is equal to 2x. Divide by our coefficient, and we get x equals 8. So that means it will take 8 years until Tiffany is only 3 times as old as Vanessa. So if we think about that, in 8 more years, how old would Tiffany be? Well, 34 plus 8 is going to give us 42. So in 8 years, we go by, she would be 42. And in 8 years, they would be 14. Well, what is 14 times 3? You get 42. So this is when she's 3 times as old as Vanessa. Ben is 39 years old and Adam is 3 years old. Okay, so they're telling us again their ages. 39 years old and Adam is 3 years old. So we've got Ben is 39 years old. Adam is 3 years old. How many years will it take until Ben is only 4 times as old as Adam? So this is very similar to our last problem. We're looking for years. How many years? So x is going to be the number of years until this happens. All right? So it says, how many years will it take until Ben is only 4 times as old as Adam? So we're comparing again Ben compared to Adam. Now, we already know that Ben is 39, but we're going to add some years because we want to know how many years it's going to be until they're this 4 times situation. And we know it's going to be Adam 3 plus some years because he has to age at the same time the years are happening. But we want this to be 4 times as old. So now there's our equation. Let's go ahead and solve. 4 times 3 is 12 plus 4x, just distributing, and 39 plus x. Now we're going to solve for x. Minus x, minus x. I'll put my wall here for you guys to see. And we have 39 left on this side. 12 plus 3x. Move over our 12 by subtracting. 39 minus 12 gives me 27 is equal to 3x. Divide by my coefficient. So I have x is equal to 9. So the number of years that it will take for them to be 4 times as old as the other is 9 years. So that would be our answer. And to check ourselves, we could add 39 to 9, and we would get, 48. So in 9 years, Ben would be 48. So Ben would be 48. And Adam, in 9 years, 9 plus 3 gives me 12. So Adam would be 12, and is that 4 times as old? Well, if we take 12 times 4, we get 48. So we know. Blake is 12 years older than Charlie. So Blake is, I think about that as equal, 12 years older than Charlie. There's important information there. 17 years ago, we're talking about some time ago, Blake was, so this is the same thing as being an equal, 4 times as old as Charlie. How old is Blake now? So when we're thinking about what the question's asking us, how old is Blake now, that's what we're going to use for our variable. So we're then going to have a now and 17 years ago on our little table. And we're going to think about what we know and who we're going to talk about. So we have Blake and we have Charlie. And because we're looking for how old Blake is now, that's our unknown. We're calling Blake X. Now, back to our situation now. Blake is 12 years older than Charlie. That means Charlie's 12 years younger than Blake. So if we're calling Blake X, Charlie can be called X minus 12. Now, that's right now. 17 years ago, we need to think about what they would be. So Blake, 17 years ago, is going to be X minus 17. Charlie, 17 years ago, is going to be what he is now, minus another 17. So negative 12 and negative 17 give me a negative 29. So now there are their expressions for now and 17 years ago. Now, the reason we have to do the now is to be able to come up with 17. We're focusing on using these expressions for our equation. So 17 years ago, Blake was. So we're comparing Blake. 17 years ago, Blake, X minus 17. This is our Blake 17 years ago. Compared to Charlie, X minus 29. But we want Charlie be 4 times as old. So we want Blake to be equal when Charlie's 4 times as old. So we want Blake's to be equal to when Charlie's age is 4 times that. So that's our equation. Now we would solve. So we have 4x minus 116, just by distributing. And nothing happened here. And now we're going to solve. So minus x, put my wall there. So I have a negative 17, these are canceled here, equals 3x minus 116. Move over my constant, plus 116, plus 116. This gives me 99 is equal to 3x. Divide by my coefficient of 3. I get x is equal to 9 divided by 3 is 3. And 9 divided by 3 again is 3. 33. So that tells me x is worth 33. And what is x standing for? Well, it's standing for Blake's age now. So Blake is 33 years old now. In 45 years, so in 45 years, something's going to happen. Kelly will be 4 times as old as she is right now. So we're just talking about Kelly. How old is she right now? Well, we're talking about right now. That's what we don't know. So we're going to call Kelly right now. We're going to call her X. Kelly's age right now. But in 45 years, we've got to have an expression for Kelly. Well, Kelly's age in 45 years is going to be whatever she is now, which is X, plus 45. So now we have 2 expressions, now and 45 years from now. So it says Kelly will be, so think about will be as an equals. So Kelly will be, well, what in 45 years, Kelly's going to be X plus 45. 4 times as old as she is right now. Well, right now she's just X, and we're saying 4 times as old as that. So 4 times X. There's your equation. So now let's solve. Well, this is the same thing as 4x. And we're going to move our x over. So we end up with 45 is equal to 3x divided by your coefficient. So we have x is equal to 45 divided by 3, which is 15. So right now, how old is she right now? She's 15 years old. All right, here's another. In 16 years, we're talking about 16 years, something's going to happen. Ben will be, so Ben will be, think about that as an equal, 3 times, that's multiplying, as old as he is right now. How old is he right now? Well, we don't know. So right now, Ben, his age, we're going to call X, because we don't know it. But we know in 16 years, we're going to be comparing it to. So Ben's age in 16 years is going to be whatever he is now, which is X, plus 16. So there's our 2 expressions. Now, we're going to look back in the problem. It says, in 16 years, okay, Ben will be, so in 16 years, his age is X plus 16. He will be 3 times as old as he is now. Okay, so 3 times X. That's our expression. That's our equation. So now let's solve. Minus x, we get 16 is equal to 2x. Divide by our coefficient, and we get x is equal to 8. So right now, Ben's age is 8 years old. John is 2 times as old as Matt. Okay, so we got John and we got Matt. And it says John is 2 times as old as Matt. 35 years ago, well, there's that long ago situation, John was, think about was, the same thing as is in the present tense, 7 times as old. Again, 7 times. We're multiplying. How old is Matt now? So what we don't know is Matt's age. That's what we're looking for. That's what the question's asking. So we're going to talk about now, and we're going to talk about 35 years ago. Now, right now, we talk about 2 people. We have John and we have Matt. So Matt and John. And we know we're looking for Matt's age now, so that's what we're going to make our unknown or our variable. Now, let's talk what else we know about John right now. So right now, here's our right now part, right in the beginning. John is 2 times as old as Matt. Well, if Matt's being called X, John can be called 2X. Now, let's talk about 35 years ago. We have Matt, 35 years ago, and we have John, 35 years ago. Well, if Matt is X now, 35 years ago, he's going to be X minus 35. And if John right now is 2X, 35 years ago, he's going to be 2X minus 35. So now we have all our expressions. So now let's go into what we're going to use to set up our equation. So here's the second part. So we've used all that to set up the first part, just to set up our expressions. Now, 35 years ago, so we're just focusing here, John was, so what is John? John is 2x minus 35, was the same thing as an equals, 7 times as old as Matt. Well, 7 times whatever Matt was 35 years ago, x minus 35. So there's your equation. So now we're going to solve. So distribute first. So we have 7x minus 245 is equal to 2x minus 35. Now let's move our variables. Minus 2x minus 2x. Put your y there. We have a negative 35 is equal to 5x minus 245. Let's move over our constants. So plus 245 plus 245. Positive 245 and a negative 35, we get 210 is equal to 5x, because these are now canceled. Then we divide by 5. Well, 210 divided by 5 is going to give us 42. And 5 divided by 5 is 1, so we're left with just x. So that means x is worth 42. Well, who is x? Matt is x right now, and that's what we want to know right now. So we know that Matt right now is 42 years old now.